Welcome to the Lasting Love Podcast, where wedding professionals come together to share their expert insights and real-world experiences. Whether you're a wedding professional or a newly engaged couple looking to plan your perfect day, this is the go-to destination for all things weddings. Tune in as we explore the latest trends, share the industry secrets, and discuss the challenges of running a successful wedding business. Join me, luxury wedding photographer Josh Russell, as I show you the ins and outs of our industry. And together, we'll make sure every event is a picture-perfect success. Let's get started. Another amazing podcast right here. This is the Lasting Love Podcast, the show about weddings. My name is Josh Russell. I am your weekly, bi-weekly, multi-weekly host of this gambit of the wedding world. With me today, I have a very special guest. Yes, I have been reaching out for these first few to my personal friends to grow, but at the same time, these are the people that I work with. These are the peers. These are the ones that I know are doing a hell of a job in what they do. Today, I have a very special guest with me. You've seen us pretty much, if you've ever been to any photography conference, you see us together. If you've ever been to a workshop, we're probably doing it together. We're the Wild Wild West Cowboys. I have a Chicago photographer who does street photography, portraits, weddings, and a little bit of everything, even a little bit of landscape stuff that I've seen lately. I have the owner of Real World Photography, Mr. Daryl Wilkerson Jr. What's going on, Daryl?
Hey, what's going on, Josh? How are we feeling today?
I am feeling fantastic. Every one of these podcasts, now it's funny because I've been doing like podcasts and hosting online stuff for years, but then like when I start a new one, I'm always kind of like weary about it. And like I noticed it, like I listened to the one even yesterday, there could have been a lot more energy in my voice in some stuff. I recorded a new intro for it, and I recorded it like 20 times because I didn't feel like it was energetic enough. I felt like I was just reading a script. But I'm feeling good. How are you, Daryl?
Oh, I'm doing good. I'm going to try to match and bring the energy today and talk about weddings.
Tell me a little bit about your business. Tell me a little bit about you. Tell the listeners about you. What do they need to know about Daryl?
All right. Yeah. So I'm Daryl. I started my business, Real World Photography, about 5 years ago at this point, 5 years next month, February. And I started it because I got burnt out in the corporate world. I was just really good at my job, at my corporate job, been there 10 years. But we just stopped caring about people so much. It was more about bottom lines. And I really loved my job because of the people that I worked with. So it was time for me to make a change. I left that world, jumped into photography. My wife actually got me into photography because I took a picture of New York City skyline on my iPhone, and she actually blew it up to like a 16 by 20 canvas, and it still hangs in our house to this day. And she was like, you know what? You should really do the photography thing. You've always been around it. You're very good at it. You should really just go with it. Just run with it. Just, take a year. If you don't like it, then, go back to the corporate world, but give it a go. And so I started that 5 years ago, and I'm still running. So I'm still going with it, and I'm still, learning, growing, happy where I'm at, and just doing a lot of great things in photography.
Were you doing photography like as a side hustle or anything before you kind of went full speed ahead, or was it let's rock and roll, let's get into it as much as we can?
So I had always loved photography. I actually got my grandfather's old camera when I was a kid, and so I played around with that. I always had like a disposable camera whenever we go on like field trips or family outings. I always had like a little disposable Kodak, and I was always snapping pictures. And when I was in my corporate job, people would be like, hey, you know how to use a camera? Can you just take pictures of, the event or get together we're having? And so I'd usually just have usually my cell phone at that point. And I would always be taking pictures, little small DSLR, just doing stuff like that. And so it had always been a part of my world, but I had never made it a big part of my world. I actually broke the cardinal rule of photography some years back where my sister got married, and I came to the wedding with my iPad, and I was taking pictures on my iPad. So I was that guy.
I talked about this yesterday in the last podcast that I recorded. I literally just talked about the people that hold iPads up. I mean, I didn't touch on it deeply, but you're what's wrong with a wedding, bro? Like, don't bring the iPad.
Yeah, I was that dude. So I shot a whole wedding on the iPad. It was like iPad 2 at the time. And I was like, hey, this is kind of fun, and never did anything with it. But then when the time came back around, for me to really pursue my love of photography, weddings were something I instantly gravitated towards. I loved being candid. I loved the storytelling aspect. Not having to always be front and center and tell people what to do to get the best photos, but just let things just kind of play out. That was something that spoke to me, and I loved getting into weddings when I started my business.
That's awesome. And so when you got into the wedding industry post iPad day, were you did you go straight into like main photography, or were you an assistant? Were you a second shooter? Did you just go kind of hold lights? Like how did you get into the wedding side?
Yeah, so that's actually an excellent point. So, the way I kind of got into weddings was a little interesting. I actually sent out, I believe I have the number here somewhere. Hold on, 75 emails to wedding photographers in my area and surrounding areas, asking to shadow, see what they did on a regular wedding day, and I got two responses back, and so that wasn't very. It put me in the right headspace to really go and do weddings.
Yeah.
But with that, I actually had the opportunity to go to ClickCon 2019 here in Chicago. It was the first year that was happening, and one of the greatest things that happened out of that, and this is why I tell people go to conferences because you never know who you're going to meet. There was a speaker there, and his name was Jermaine Horton, and at the time he was a wedding photographer here in Chicago. And after his class, I just, asked him like, hey, I know you do weddings. I would like to learn how to do weddings. And I was wondering if I could just shadow you or just hold a light or, hold the bag, whatever you need me to do. And I'll never forget it. He didn't say like, hey, what camera do you have? Or, what experience do you have in doing this? He just asked me like, why do you want to do weddings? And so I told him, the storytelling aspect is the thing that for me, I love to do because I know these photos are going to live on past me, probably past the couple. They're going to become family heirlooms, but it's going to be a marker in time of two people coming together to create a family and celebrating their love for one another. And as soon as I told him that, he said, all right, let's go. I got a wedding this day. You could come help. And I first started assisting. And I think that was probably the best thing for me. And I tell people it's the best thing you can do getting into weddings. Because, one of the great allures of weddings are they're probably outside of commercial work, one of the highest dollar value assignments you can get in photography. You're taking a whole day and you may be able to make anywhere between $2,000 to $20,000 for the day. And I mean, those are just numbers in a range.
Right.
Go higher, you can go much higher than that in some cases. But there's a lot that goes into it. There is a ton of work. You're shooting at least 5 different styles of photography in the day. Nothing can be redone. So, execution at the highest level is something you have to have. So assisting is how I got started. I assisted for almost 18 months before I got my first second shooter opportunity with my mentor. So assisting was the biggest part of actually learning the wedding business, seeing things from small weddings to high-end weddings, to same-sex weddings, to seeing how things are different in each situation, working with different planners, working with different other wedding venues, different vendors. Everything is different from wedding to wedding to wedding. And the more that you can see and learn that, when it's time for you to actually pick up the camera and create these memories, you'll just be well-versed and well-rounded in the different things that you might experience.
Now it may be different in your area, but when you were starting out, you were doing the assisting, was Jermaine or any of the other people you were working with, did they pay you right away, or was it something you were just kind of volunteering your time to get like your foot in the door and kind of see and learn and experience on the education side of it, or were you getting fully paid for it? I feel like that's a question that a lot of people that are trying to get into it might not get that, like from around here in this perspective, if you're just going to assist, you're probably getting paid like $50 to be there the whole day or something like that. It's not a lot. It's more about the experience and the learning. So like, where is that as far as your experience?
Yeah, so I know for me, when I assist, I had no expectation of getting paid. I just really wanted the experience because, there are more valuable things than money. And the knowledge and things that you pick up and the skill set you develop are invaluable when you finally step out into the wedding world. I did not expect to get paid. However, my mentors, were very gracious, and, I would get thrown we'd split the tip, or, get thrown 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, $100,
Right.
depending on the wedding. And what I had to do. My mentors always took care of me. But I always tell people, it's something I walked into not having the expectation, because these people are taking time out of their day to, at certain points, it wasn't always like, hey, put the light here and this is why I'm going to shoot this. It would literally be like, hey, get that light ready. Hey, put this lens on this camera. Hey, take this and put this away. And then at, reception time, dinner time, cocktail hour, we go over an image and say, like, now this is why I did this and this is why I did that. And so I always looked at it for the value of the education. And I do believe in compensating people for their time. So, if I take
Right.
an assistant,
Yeah.
I definitely want to make sure that, I throw them something for their time. But at the end of the day, it was more for the passion for me. So I didn't look for it, but generally, I was taken care of.
Right. And that's kind of the point that I was getting at too, is yes, you shouldn't expect to get paid if you're going out to learn. I mean, yes, you should get paid, but at the same time, the experience, the education is way more valuable in the long run than the $50 that you're going to make, or $100 that you're going to make. That $100 is going to disappear tomorrow, but the experience, the knowledge, that's going to stick around and help you grow that $100 that you could have made into multiple thousands of dollars as a business.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah. So, what was the transition from assistant? Well, actually, before we get to that, a point that you made about, Jermaine or whoever your main shooter is, they may be asking you like, hey, put this lens on, hey, put that lens on. But at the most of the time, like, I know me personally, if I have somebody like even my wife who's still learning, she's my second shooter, but she's still learning as well. I'm like, hey, put this 85 on because I'm going to take portraits and it's a better up close lens. And just like stuff like that is so much more important. And I try to do that. So even if we're not straight up teaching, we are teaching at the same time, because we're giving an explanation on why I want them to put the light on the left-hand side, or why the 35 is a better wider shot than an 85 or something like that. So I just feel like it's important to know that you're getting knowledge without even needing like a lesson, I guess. Like you could pay to get lessons, but if you're willing to devote a little bit of volunteer time or minimal pay time to go on location and learn, then I feel like you're going to get a lot more value from that than paying thousands of dollars to go to school for photography or something like that.
Yeah, no, completely agree with that.
So let's get into it now. What was the transition from assistant to second shooter? Because I know at second shooter level, and we'll kind of call them like levels, I guess, or like promotions. But at that point, then that's when you really start getting paid, because then you're actually doing, not that you're not doing work as an assistant, but you're creating some of the artwork. So like, what was that transition like? You said you did quite a few weddings as an assistant until you moved up into second. So kind of give us that story.
Yeah, no, I definitely remember it very well. I was working again with Jermaine, and he had reached out to me and said, hey, I want you to shoot this time. I want you to, second shoot with me on this wedding. And I said, okay, I think I'm ready. And I went into that wedding. I was, all the butterflies. This is the first time I get to do this. Usually when you assist, you're with the lead photographer everywhere they go. When you start second shooting, it's more customary for the second shooter to take a piece of the getting ready. So usually the second shooter will go with the guys, and the main photographer will stay with the bride. And I remember hearing that, and I remember instantly just like clamming up and being like, oh my God, this is happening. And so I had my opportunity. It was time for me to go do my thing. And I started out horribly. Thank God for dynamic range, because I remember going over those shots with my mentor, like, dude, you got to get your flash power up. You got to balance this out. Like, okay, let me show you, like, this is where your shot started. And now look, you were off 3 stops. You could have went up in your ISO. You could have upped your flash power depending where you were at. And that was like, oh my God, I've ruined this. I've totally screwed up. And then we started going through the rest of the day, and it was like, no, look, your composition here was fantastic. The way you saw this angle, I would never have seen that. That's a great photo. And then, some other critiques came along, and praise for what I did right and things I could improve on. That was kind of critical, and that was key. And so when you start second shooting, and this is why I tell people, if you want to get into the wedding business, always assist first, because second shooting is a lot of pressure. You have to really be able to get the images outside of any supervision. And one thing that I feel like my skills kind of lent myself very well to was, as a second shooter, one of the reasons I still second shoot to this day. I will second shoot for my friends. My mentors call me up to second shoot for them from time to time, is the creative aspect, because you will get to see different things outside of the lead position in wedding photography. As a lead photographer, you're looking for, you got to get the detail ring shots. You got to get the wedding invitations. You got to get a whole list of things in your head that you're like, I have to have this for the wedding day. And as a second shooter, you kind of get the creativity to stand to the side and, get the picture of mom crying as her daughter comes down the aisle. You get the picture of, the groomsmen, like, amping up the groom as his bride comes down the aisle. You get the opportunity to see the other moments and capture those moments and fill out the rest of the story. That the lead photographer just generally won't have the ability to move that quickly and get those shots. So for me, it was a scary experience at first, but I had a great mentor who walked me through the process of, like, do these things differently next time. And then the next time we second shot, I felt more comfortable. And then the next time we second shot, I got even more comfortable. And so, it was just literally a process of, seeing the day when you're assisting, when you start second shooting, understanding, what you need to do as a second shooter, what images you're responsible for, and then being able to understand, like, hey, you have the ability to be in a creative space as well, as the lead photographer is in the same creative space, and really start to see the wedding day at a different perspective. Because, like, one of the things I tell a lot of people that second shoot is, it's not your job to get the first kiss. It's not your job to have all the wedding portraits. But one of the things that I've done for a lot of the photographers I've worked with is I'll get an opposite angle. And so when I usually shoot with my mentor, we trust each other enough that, like, I'll see him shooting something, I will set up and take another angle. Maybe I'll get behind a bush and throw an element in the foreground, and I'll be like, hey, Jermaine, when you're done, can I get a shot? And he'll be like, yeah. So he'll say, all right, I'm done. And I'll ask the couple to direct, position themselves differently, look over at me, and I'll get that shot. Now that's another portrait. So you start to develop these things, and when you work with the same people multiple times, you start to develop this trust and rapport with one another. And that just really just starts to take your wedding game from, literally nothing to getting that confidence. And then you really start taking your creative steps that when you start to look into becoming a lead photographer, you'll start seeing the things that were like, yeah, this is what made me a great second. This is what I want my main business to be all about.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too. And I explain it to my wedding couples, mine's kind of different the way that I explain it, but basically I tell them that I, as the main photographer, am in charge of the posed stuff, the artistics, the lay flats, all of the stuff that I feel is going to fully tell the story, where my second, my wife Casey, she is in charge of filling in the moments in between, because a lot of people like candid stuff, a lot of people like the pose stuff, but with that option of having that second photographer, that's why it's important, is because they don't have to choose which one they want, they get both. And I feel like that's something that we could kind of touch on a little bit, is looking more towards the wedding perspective, or the wedding couple perspective from this situation, why it's important to get a second photographer. Because yes, I know that I could do a fantastic job shooting a wedding, but I know with having a second photographer there, I myself have even more confidence, because I know the's more chances of getting those shots. And I feel like that's something that a lot of wedding couples who are potentially looking for a photographer, they don't realize that aspect of it. They're just looking at the price maybe, or they're looking at, okay, well, he's there for 10 hours. Can't he capture everything? But you got to realize that in that 10 hours, it's a lot of like 1 hour long segments broken down throughout the day. So if I'm the only person there in that 1 hour, and I typically say you with a wedding, me personally, you're getting between like 30 and 40 final photos per hour. So like a 10-hour wedding, you're getting about 400 bangers, the good photos. Now with that, I do give the option of getting more if they want, but that's the really good ones. Now, if it were just me, that number would probably go down because I'd be focusing more on the artwork. So you'd be getting like 3 photos an hour or 5 photos an hour because I'm not praying and spraying. I'm planning every one of my shots. So as having a second photographer there, yes, it's more money because we have to pay them. It's more money because we have to edit more and take more time to edit. It's more money because we have to call through all of that. But it is really important because you're also getting that confidence of having the knowledge of knowing that there's more likely of a chance of them capturing a photo that just having one person may miss. For example, first look. You get 2 angles, or first look like with dad or first look with grandpa, or if they do a first look prior to ceremony, you're getting both angles instead of just one where I have to run from one side and run to the other real quick. So you're going to miss one initial reaction where having that assistant with you, you're going to get both. So yeah, do you agree? Do you feel that that's one of the benefits of having a second photographer with you at a wedding let's say you're a couple listening to this podcast, does that ring a bell? Does that sound right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think from the couple's perspective, when I'm booking my own weddings and I'm talking to couples about what's important, there's a lot of different varying points on wedding photography. There are people who are very traditional. Their wedding is going to be 400 or 500 deep. And, the second shooter is just right off the bat, we need it because we know we need to have photos of everybody. We want photos of everything. And that second shooter is just, par for the course. You run into kind of what I call the middle ground where we're at right now in the wedding world, where people want the story to be told and they're more understanding of the storytelling aspects. And I always recommend the second shooter to them. For the main purpose of, this person is helping to, like you said, fill the story in. I'm going to tell your love story. They are going to help me tell the rest of the story of the day. And so, when we have the ring bearer, who's a cousin, who's doing something cute before he walks down the aisle, my second shooter is on that. And so that detail is not missed because I'm at the front, catching the procession. I'm not going to get, the ring bearer in the back of the church. So it's always important to have full storytelling aspect. And I always, push my couples to, let's do it this way because, we get 2 angles on this. We get mom's reaction. You're coming down the aisle. We know she's a crier and we know she wants that picture. And then, on the other side of it, you have very minimalist couples. And I always still recommend the second shooter to them. And I say, it is more opportunity to tell that love story. From many different angles, you may be like, look, dad's golf buddies are coming. I could care less if I have a picture of them. I just want our story to be told. And I tell them there's a way to tell that story from so many different ways and so many different angles. The second shooter is just such a critical position. I've seen some photographers who just write it into all their packages now, to where the second shooter is just in there.
It's just automatic.
Right. It's just an automatic, hey, you book me, you're getting a second shooter. Because it's just absolutely, it's almost becoming a critical piece now to the scale that weddings are going to. And, especially when you start moving up in the price ranges, second shooters and even third shooters become necessary because you have so much going on, and especially cultural weddings. There's a lot happening and there's a lot of people involved in this process now. From, very intimate members of family who are very connected to the process of the marriage. A lot of couples are wanting to have that full story told. And so, from the couple's perspective, it is always beneficial to have additional creatives on your team because now your story can be told from multiple different viewpoints, multiple different angles. And, one thing that I always tell people is when a couple sees their images, they never look back and say, well, you know what, darn it, these are just way too many angles and way too many shots. They're like, my God, we love, we didn't even know this was happening. Oh my God, you got the picture of, little Johnny picking his nose before he comes down the aisle. Like, we love that. Like,
Right.
that's so Johnny, and it's never been a situation where somebody's like, it's just too much. They're always like, oh my God, I'm so glad we had the second shooter.
Yeah, I feel like it's so beneficial, and I don't even honestly know why I offer a collection anymore that's just me, because nobody ever books it. It's always, and I don't know if it's this weird like underlying stigma, but when I say that we're a husband and wife team, it's just always like a boost. Like as soon as I mention it, they're like, oh, okay, yeah, that sounds great. Like I just feel like, I don't know what it is about the husband and wife photography team, but I just feel like it resonates to a couple so much more. But that's not my point though. I mean, maybe one wedding a year I book that it's just me. Everything else is me and a second photographer, which, like I said, is Casey, unless she has what I call a normal 9-to-5 job too. So if it's like a Friday wedding or something like that, sometimes she can't get off, but I have other awesome photographers I work with. And that's kind of drawing to back to the photographer side of this topic. And the question at hand is, or the topic, I should say, if you're a second shooter, when you get to that second shooter level, at that point, then most of the time, your photographer is going to allow you to use those photos in your portfolio. So that's why being a second shooter is also super beneficial, because you're shooting wedding photos without needing to do all the extra work. You don't have to book. You don't have to go to the meetings. You don't have to do anything. You're literally just going to shoot photos that you're going to get to use to promote your own business. Now, most of the time, even me, if you're my second shooter and you use my photos on your website, at some point near that photo, you have to say, here's an example of a photo I shot while working with Josh Russell Weddings, or while working with The Lasting Love, or I was, something like that. But you're building a portfolio without needing to do any additional like pre-work, post-work. You just have to show up, listen to your main photographer on what he wants, and then fill in the blank space with whatever you want to do creatively.
So it's awesome.
So if you're trying to build a portfolio with a wedding, in weddings, and one, you don't want to do the work right away, or two, you don't know how, that's something that you can jump in there and you can do, and you can get your foot right in that and dive in, knee deep right away instead of going head first, and get that information, get that knowledge. Another thing, as a second shooter, a second photographer, and if you want to start learning that business side of it, ask your mentor, your main photographer, if you can sit in a meeting with them, so you can kind of start getting that information. You can ask your main photographer, especially in the world of digital now. We're doing a ton of Zoom meetings. Ask them if they have any of their Zoom meetings recorded that you can watch or that you can listen to. I know not a lot of people do that, but a lot of us photographers who are also in the shunned word, like a social influencer, like somebody who has a YouTube channel or teaches online courses, we record a lot of that stuff because we can use it as behind the scenes footage and stuff like that. I know I do. I record most of my Zoom meetings, and it also on the main photographer side of things, me recording my meetings, if there's Zoom, helps me. Like, when did they say they were, at what time was the ceremony going to be? Oh, let's just go back and watch the video. So that's why I do it. But if Casey wanted to watch my video, she could just go and sit down and watch my video, watching me go walk through a meeting, talking about how, what each collection has, where I'll be at what time throughout the day, roughly, what they're getting, how many photos they're getting, how quick is turnaround. Like, these are all questions as an assistant, as a second photographer. When you're ready to move up to that number one spot, you're going to need to know all this information. So working with somebody who's already established, working as a second photographer, is going to get you even closer to the business side of things, instead of just doing what I did, which now in retrospect, I tell everybody to start out, and maybe not an assistant, but start out as a second shooter. In this area, you can kind of get away with just being a second shooter without and skipping that assistant step, because there are a lot of, budget-friendly weddings, I guess you could call them, where they're looking for new photographers. And I know this is all like shunned words that I'm using that we could have an entire different conversation and podcast about. But there are these, we're working with $1,000 budget, and we're okay with having a college student or somebody. And there are professional photographers that are still taking these cheaper, lower budget weddings, where you as an assistant could definitely, or as a second photographer, could definitely fill in and not feel out of place. Now, a $10,000 wedding, I wouldn't expect your first wedding to be as a second shooter. You'd want to be an assistant first. You wouldn't want to I wouldn't just throw you into the wolves in like a giant, wedding where they're expecting everything and you're still learning. So getting in with these weddings and stuff like that, getting in closer with and working primarily like you did with Jermaine, working with one photographer as your main person will help you, because if you're just trying to fill in and be an assistant in multiple weddings or a second in multiple weddings, you're going to get different information from each one. And yes, that can be good, but at the same time, it may confuse you when you're trying to learn. But what I'm getting back to, or what I should get back to, is I went like head first. I went from never shooting weddings to shooting these budget-friendly weddings. So I didn't have all this knowledge handed to me. I had to go out and look for it. And I feel like if I did have somebody that was training me, if they were teaching me the ropes of the business side of it, not so much the photography side of it, like that's something you have to learn on your own. But yes, you can pick up styles and techniques and skills, but the business side of it, like that's a whole nother ball game that it's hard to learn by yourself. It takes forever. So if you have a mentor that can teach you, as yes, you're a second photographer, but if you could also be like, hey, I'm also trying to learn the business side of things, because as much as I love working with you, I don't want to be your second forever, because one, I know the experience, it comes with a pay increase, and you're not going to want to pay me what I'm worth. And so and one, I just want to make a name or two, I just want to make a name for myself. So can you teach me a little bit about the business? Now, if I were just Josh, the photographer, and I went to Daryl and I was like, hey, Daryl, I'm looking to start a business. Can you teach me everything about the business side of it? You'd probably be like, those is kind of some trade secrets. But if we've already built this relationship, this rapport of me being your second photographer, we've grown a relationship, a friendship, a business friendship, however you want to look at it, then you're probably more likely to help me grow, help me start my business. Because yes, we always look at like our network, our circle of photographers as a network, but they are also competition. So you don't want to train somebody with your style, your business skills and techniques, and have them try to squash you later. You know what I mean? So you build those relationships first, and that's what becoming an assistant, growing to a second photographer, and that's what that relationship is going to build.
Yeah, no, I think you hit it right on the head. And just kind of the further that point, you talked about, the growth that comes with it. And, one of the reasons I selected the mentors in my career that I've selected was I handpicked them just based upon a lot of the aspects I wanted to grow and be successful in photography. So I have a business mentor. I have a photography style mentor. I have kind of like a personality mentor coach type deal. And all three of these people work in the wedding world. I do have another mentor who's outside in the business, still in the business world that I left, that I'm still very close with. But I feel that you take the things that you need from people and then bring it into your own world. And the best thing that I will tell you is there's a difference between what people don't understand this when they ask. There are times that you want to coach and there's times that you want to mentor. Coach will teach you exactly how to do something verbatim, steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You want to learn how to shoot Rembrandt lighting. Okay, here's how you do it, because there, is no trade secret there. It is just put the light here, turn the model here, and this is how you get this lighting. How do you shoot, a first look? There's a basic formula to that. That is not a trade secret. But what a mentor will do for you is they will help you grow in your own personal journey. So like when I talk about my mentors in the wedding world, and I talk about Jermaine, Jermaine is very true to life, bright, bold colors, and I am very much a more vintage, almost film look aesthetic to my wedding work. And so I do not shoot exactly the same as my mentor. That's just not, what I do. Now, when we come together for second shooting, I know how to shoot those images the same way he would. So if I have to second shoot, or even if I have the opportunity to associate shoot, I know how to get the images the same way he would take them. But more so in my personal journey, it has always been that, my mentor said, okay, well, you're building your own style. Like, remember when I was second shooting, the question became, what's your style? How are you going to shoot? Because what I see from you is, dude, you're ducking behind chairs. You are, in the bushes. You are getting these angles that I'm not even thinking about because, that was my creative influence. I love, like you had mentioned before, I did a lot of street photography and being very candid in that because I didn't want people to react the way they thought they should react when the camera's there. I want people to react as they would if the camera wasn't even a million miles within their thoughts. And so, for me, and when I was growing, my mentor said, okay, so now how are you going to market that? What's your ideal client? Do you want to be standing on a mountain at the top of Everest taking photos, or do you want to be in the Pacific Northwest on the cliffs overlooking the ocean? What kind of weddings do you want to shoot? Because, you could shoot just as somebody shoots big glam weddings in the best hotels downtown. There are couples that want that exact same experience with that exact same budget and may want you on the lake a couple towns north,
Right.
And how do you make that work for yourself as a business in your own style? And how do you grow? And that's what a mentor will do for you. They will not try to push what they do on you. They will say, I see you as the artist you are. I want to help you navigate those waters, but they're your waters to navigate. So you can't do what I did and call this person and talk to this one and take this one out to lunch and be successful. You're going to have to find your own way, but I'll help you navigate, steer, ask you the questions you need to be asking yourself, and help you get where you want to go on the path that is your path to success. And so I think that's also important for people when they are getting into the wedding business. Where do you want to truly be? Because you will start to develop things as you go through, and the people that you are attached to, you want to make sure they understand your creative vision and can help you go through your journey. Not so much, yes, you're going to want to be coached on certain things and understand how to do things verbatim, because that may be something like, a ring shot. We all want to know how to do that. But at the end of the day, do you put the ring in a tree? Do you do a flat lay? Do you do a macro shot? Those are going to be personal decisions that are up to you. And so having somebody who understands your style, who understands you as an artist, is super important, because you want to grow as the individual and not always the carbon copy of the person that you're working with.
And the cool thing about being versatile like that is you can go, like you were saying, that your style is so different than Jermaine's. You can go shoot his style and then change your settings and shoot your style for your portfolio. That's the cool thing about being a second, is you can shoot their style because you're not editing the photos, or maybe you are editing them in their style, or however your situation works out. But you could take a photo of you with your style and then go right back to shooting like whoever you're working with, because as a second photographer, you have a little bit more empty space. You know what I mean? Like, you have a little bit more freedom where you could switch your settings real quick, take a lay flat in a vintage style, and then go back to your bright color. So I guess just to wrap this up, I mean, there are so many benefits of being an assistant, of being a second shooter, of being literally just somebody who brings the lighting in and stuff like that, even if it's a lower level than just an assistant. There's so many benefits to getting into this industry, and if you don't look at it as a money-making opportunity right away. look at it as an educational experience. I just feel like that's the most important thing. Wedding couples, if you're still listening to this, I feel like you could get a lot of information. It may be kind of hidden in a lot of technical mumbo jumbo. But I feel like that you can get why we're getting to the point where second photographers, where even having an assistant, some people are like, why is there a person just walking around holding stuff or moving stuff? It's because it allows your main photographer to focus on what they need to shoot, what they need to get, and your second shooter is able to capture everything in between. Your assistant is taking care of the lights, or their assistant is taking care of the lights, so they can focus on the good photos. There are reasons why having an assistant around, having a second shooter with you, those are important. Those are important for your wedding, to capture everything that your main photographer may not be able to capture. And it's not a lack of skill. It's just their attention may be focused on something else. So consider wedding collections with second photographers. Look for those photographers that automatically, have them added in. A second photographer is very beneficial. Daryl, I do have another thing that I want to do with you. I'm adding these fast questions in. So it's 10 questions.
Yeah.
No thinking. You got to get it.
All right.
So right now, these are like super technical. Some people are going to be like, I don't care about this. Some are fun. So what camera's in your bag right now? What are you shooting with?
Two Sony A7 IIIs.
What's your go-to lens for weddings?
Go-to wedding for lens?
If you could only take one lens with you to a wedding, what would it be?
All right. It's going to be the 35mm G Master all day.
What's your biggest wedding pet peeve?
Cell phones in the aisle.
Cell phones in the aisle. I feel that one. What does your wedding outfit look like? What are you wearing when you go to weddings? Are you dressed down? Are you in a penguin suit? Like what's your outfit?
You will not find me in a penguin suit, but I will be black head to toe, black polo, black pants, and black shoes.
Absolutely. Reception dinner: steak, chicken, or fish?
Ooh, dang, steak, but it better be medium.
What's your favorite: summer, spring, fall, or winter weddings?
Ooh. Dang, I got one in 2 weeks, so I better say winter. No, I definitely, something super magical about the fall weddings, just because the way the sun rises and sets, it's never really directly up and down. You can get some amazing compositions, lighting, and also the sun sets earlier, so you can get those beautiful backlit golden hour shots a lot earlier in the day.
Okay, here's a trick question, and it's also where you can give a little plug too. Natural light or flash photography?
Ooh, dang, Josh, really? If the natural light is the best light, always natural. But if we are going for a look, or we have something we want to create, the couple and myself, flash all day. Create the light that you need to get the photo that you want.
Westcott all the way too. All right, next one. The DJ steps away to use the bathroom, asks you to play a song while he's gone. What song are you playing?
Ooh. Man. I'm going to have to go with the Macarena. Get the party going.
What's your dream wedding location? If you could shoot any wedding anywhere, where would it be?
Man, if I could shoot any wedding anywhere, I would probably say I would love to absolutely do a wedding in Tokyo.
Yeah, nice.
Tokyo, Japan. I think that would be an awesome vibe and a look for a wedding.
All right, I got one more, and this is aimed at the wedding couples. If you could give them one piece of advice as a wedding photographer about their wedding day, what is it?
Just be yourself. Enjoy your day. There is a lot of pressure that people feel to perform. But remember, it's all about you, and just enjoy your day, have fun, and enjoy each other. I always tell my wedding couples, I am your assistant today. If there's something you need, you let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to be the pro you hired, and I'm going to get the images that we need, and I'll give you the direction where I need it, but I'll fall back as soon as that direction is not needed.
Awesome. Daryl, tell them where they can find you, find out some social media information, websites, stuff like that if they're looking for, and we didn't even mention this, you are a Chicago-based photographer, but you do travel as well. So where can they find out information if they're looking for a photographer in Chicago or anywhere?
Yeah, so you can find me. I am at Real World Photography. That's RYL World Photography on social media and Facebook, and just realworldphotography.net on the web. You can find all my work, all my pricing, everything you need there. And yeah, I don't do the TikTok yet. I'm jumping into the YouTube space, so it'll be at Real World Photography on everything, but that's where you can find me right now.
Awesome, bro, man. I appreciate you coming in here and doing this podcast. I think we touched on a lot of topics that a lot of both photographers and wedding couples can enjoy and get some information from. So thank you for doing this.
Absolutely, man.
Look for, on a side note, look for both of us. Daryl's coming to Shutterfest with me as my assistant. Yes, he is a professional photographer, but he is still assisting. I should say you might even have him second shoot one of my workshops or one of my classes. But he will also be there. We are both speaking at ClickCon this year.
Official announcement.
We're talking. You're already on the page. Like, I saw your headshot last night. But we're also talking about maybe heading to WPPI. We got a bunch of stuff coming up for workshops in the Chicago area. We'll probably be putting something together in my area. So, I mean, like I said, me and Daryl are together a lot. We're working together. If you've ever taken one of our workshops, you understand that we both try to cover something completely different and give you all aspects in a slam session, basically. So thank you again, Daryl. Like I said, stick around after I end this and we'll kind of close out. But Lasting Love Podcast, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found some information, some entertainment, and you can go through your wedding journey with us, whether it be as a wedding professional or an engaged couple looking for information. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button, the follow, whatever outlet you're looking on either on my blog, on Spotify, Apple, wherever else, YouTube. Make sure you hit that follow, that subscribe. Let us know if you have a topic that you want us to cover in this podcast. I will take care of it. We have more guests. We have more solo episodes coming out, and we will talk to you. I will talk to you, and I will see you in the next one.